Hello guys, it's D to the B here, and I got an interesting topic that I feel like I need to throw my hat into the ring to, and that is the drama of Galvatron's revenge. So, for those who aren't aware of the film, a while back, like 10 years ago, there was a fan film called Galvatron's Revenge, which would have been the quote unquote proper continuation of the Transformers Prime universe, and would be taking also its own liberties. It would be introducing characters like Galvatron, Cyclonus, Scourge, and Slipstream as the heralds of Unicron, or at the time called Destructicons. Which I'll give Carlos credit, he tried coming up a name of a faction that follows Unicron. I'll give him lots of credit. Granted, I don't think Destructicon or Terracon works for this faction at all. Like, for Destructicon, it sounds too similar to Constructicon. And then Terracon is also the name of the zombie Transformers, and also is a name of a faction of the Decepticons. I feel like there could be a better name for the Heralds of Unicron without just calling them the Heralds of Unicron. But that's just my perspective. But continuing on, we would also have some new characters in the Prime Universe introduced, especially the Decepticons, which at this point is completely gone, and that is the Combaticons. And I will say, when their models were first revealed, especially in the promo or the intro of Galvatron's Revenge, they looked really good. Granted, I still like the designs of the Combaticons from the film. Also, we're introduced to two new Autobot characters, Springer and Rodimus. Yeah, it kind of goes back and forth. Hello, I have a quick little update. So the reason Carlos called Hot Rod Rodimus in Galvatron's Revenge was because apparently Hasbro lost the name Hot Rod for a bit, so he went with the name Rodimus. Originally, I thought he did it as an IDW reference, which if that would have been the case, it wouldn't have surprised me. The design of Rodimus in this film is very IDW inspired, and I'm pretty sure he said this himself in the interview that he did with the Fire Brothers. So it's interesting to hear this info, and I guess it does make a lot of sense. Granted, at the same time, though, it's a fan film, so he could have gotten away with the name Hot Rod, but that's just a simple disagreement, and that's fine. And the film went through tons of production for the past 10 years. Carlos did post updates on the fan project. Also, he did a GoFundMe for the fan project, and also he released some scenes of the fan film, and everyone seemed positive about it. Like, the weird thing is, and I'm going to get to this later, is if you look at Carlos's original animatics, it was positively received. Not a single criticism or feedback from this film, not a single one. And now, yes, I can understand something looking good at first in promotion, but then it absolutely flipping over on the actual release. But the difference is, and I'm going to bring this up, Carlos released most of his test animations through the past 10 years and also showed off models before actual trailers that he made himself released on his channel. And looking at his channel, the first trailer he released for his fan film, Galvatron's Revenge, it was uploaded 11 months ago. And then if we go to the second trailer, it was uploaded 7 months ago. And then last but not least, when we go to the third trailer of the movie, I wonder how long ago. 3 months ago. Wow. So he clearly didn't release the trailer before the movie was actually finished. He posted all the animatics before he did trailers. It's not like your typical blockbuster where you are introduced to the trailers first before the actual movie comes out. He showed you scenes that him and his team were working on before he actually released some trailers. So people should have already had a taste of what the film was going to be like, especially some of the scenes with the terrible audio. But we'll get back to that later. The film eventually released, and the film was heavily criticized. Like, I've watched this movie. It's not that great. And this isn't a ploy to me to get good with the Transformers YouTubers. Honestly, screw them all. All the big time Transformers YouTubers, they are terrible people. And I do not want their approval. I just want to give my thoughts on it. Because a lot of the people giving their thoughts about the trailer are extremely biased. Like, they all hate the movie, which is fair. I get that part. But they all hate it because of one reason. Or I believe is one reason. And I'm going to bring myself into this. I don't think anyone is going to be on my side with this video. I absolutely feel like this video is going to get annihilated with dislikes. And it's all because of Orbital Bacon. So, if you're not aware of who Orbital Bacon was, I wasn't even aware of him. I've heard his voice before because of a bunch of older videos, but I didn't really pay that much attention to the internet at the time. Orbital Bacon was the common Optimus Prime voice for a bunch of fan projects all the time. If you needed an Optimus Prime voice, you went to Orbital Bacon for it. But then he came out having a different political belief, unlike his other fellow Transformers YouTubers. And he ended up getting booted from the Transformers fandom. And because he was involved with this film, which Carlos has made clear that Orbital was casted way before his drama, that wasn't his fault, which is fair, and eventually let Orbital Bacon go. And some people even flip how things actually were and saying that Orbital Bacon was removed before the film had released, but was still a part of the film, which is not true because Carlos let Orbital Bacon go after the whole Galvatron's revenge situation happened because of things that Orbital did. That's all I'm going to go to. That, I think, is the reason that most of the criticism comes from for the film. Now, there are other criticisms in this film. Like, the animation is a criticism, the voice acting is a criticism. Now, animation, I wasn't particularly bothered by. I figure I would explain why I'm not entirely bothered by the animation. Don't get me wrong, the animation is not perfect, but for me, I think the story is like the most essential when you're writing like a movie or a show, because once you focus on the animation too much, and I think this is a problem with a lot of animated films, it's just they focus too much on the visuals and not the story itself. So usually it doesn't bother me, and it kind of doesn't bother me here. But I know this animation is flawed, like, to an extreme. But I just try to focus more on the story than the animation. That's all my point is. Now, yes, it is not great. But at the same time, I think people were overhyping themselves of how good this thing was going to look. Because Keep in mind, Carlos was an independent animator with also some people who also helped animate the film. And it wasn't going to be great because they're not an official studio. They don't have the same budget that Prime had. So expecting an absolute masterpiece out of the film seems a little harsh because, again, fan project, and everyone knew what the animations were going to be like because he revealed the scenes. So it's a little bit frustrating when they expected that this was going to be like the best fan film in the universe. That's only the animation aspect. When you get to the story and the voice lines, yeah, they're not great. Of course, there's a few scenes in the film that actually are pretty good, but that's only like a small few. Even in the beginning, the opening scene is not great. When Springer and Hot Rod, or Rodimus, I should say, gosh darn it, I'm gonna have issues not calling him Hot Rod. When they escape from the planet that they're on, when Hot Rod shoots down the rubble, it's like one of the most awkward scenes in the movie. Something like this could have worked, but they're just standing there as the rubble is coming down. Like, if they had run fast enough, they probably could have made it towards them. Like, I get what Carlos was trying to go for here, but how I would have probably improved this scene was have the Combaticons, like, way further than they actually were in the actual animation, because they are too close to the entrance when the rubble comes down. If they were, like, let's say, at the start of the hallway that Rodimus and Springer escaped in, and then they shot the rubble down, then I would understand that scene working. But unfortunately, it really doesn't work. It could have been made better by this simple little edit. Continuing on with the story itself, we unfortunately still have a lot of problems with the story. Another criticism with the story that I absolutely hated in this movie, and that is the return of Optimus Prime. Don't get me wrong, I love Optimus, but Optimus heroically sacrificed himself to save Cybertron and its future, because he dumped the well of all sparks into the matrix of leadership. It was a perfect way to end his character off. And I find it strange that Carlos did this, because he said he didn't hate Robots in Disguise, but he wants to improve off of Robots in Disguise, but then proceeds to do the same thing that Robots in Disguise did. I just find it strange and a bit hypocritical. Now, here's the weird thing, though. So, you would think people would have a problem with this at first, but no. People were actually okay with Optimus coming back to life. Now, I didn't see this scene prior. I think there was a big while where I just got too busy and I couldn't catch up with all Galvatron's revenge stuff. So I had no idea the scene was revealed until looking back after the film came out. And I just found it weird that they just brought Optimus back. And then people turned on the scene because, oh, Galvatron's revenge bad, even though previously people were okay with it. Originally, when it was revealed that Prime was coming back, I figured, okay, maybe it's a temporary thing. Maybe Prime is only able to be there for a certain amount of time, or at least when Galvatron and his minions are dealt with. Here's another video. You realize that people were actually okay with it back then. So it proves my point that they have built this narrative just because of one person. Like before, on his previous animations. But once they found out Orbital Bacon was involved, they decided to trash it. And unfortunately, the film ended up not being good. and didn't help the film's case. If the film was good, I would have liked the film regardless. Like, if the story was good. What is up with it? It's just because they were mad that Orbital Bacon was involved with it, which because Orbital Bacon is a controversial figure in the Transformers fandom. If Carlos had booted Orbital Bacon from the film, I think the film would be received much differently than it is now. But because he kept Orbital Bacon, which Carlos ended up eventually booting him off the project anyway, you would think that they would forgive him at that point, but no. No, they haven't. They want to absolutely destroy Prime Animations. Like, how you feel about his fan film or not. You would think at a point they would accept his forgiveness. Like, even, let's say if your child ran away from home and then they come back, your parents are going to be a bit mad at you, but at the same time, they're going to forgive you. And same if a friend messes up something. The friends are going to get along again once they talk it over and hope that they forgive them. Of course, I know there's certain situations where that's not the case. But with Prime Animations, because I think they view it as, oh, he had this guy on and we shouldn't trust him because of this guy. Because we live in an era where people don't forgive people for things anymore. Like, I can understand someone did multiple things where they're kind of untrustworthy. I can understand that, but this was like the only instance that this guy did something against the fandom, was having Orbital Bacon in his project and defending Orbital Bacon until he found out more details about Orbital Bacon. I can't really comment too much on him because I don't really know Orbital Bacon. I'm just judging it off of what I've heard. So I will not be giving my perspective on Orbital Bacon. I'm just talking about this. And I'm only mentioning him because it's a part of the frickin' drama. Everything was received positively until that drama happened, is basically the point I'm getting at. And I'm just going to mention this. So this is the thing that definitely pisses me off the most. This is something that drives me nuts with the cancel culture mob in general, which many of these people are unfortunately a part of, which you can tell with the Galvatron's revenge drama. So when someone like me or other people that talk about the same things as me complain about like a Hollywood actor or an actress says, and then we disagree with them on what they say, these people will be like, oh, you're just toxic fans and you need to be more tolerant, or you just need to stop being racist and sexist and homophobic. Like, and you would think the party that calls themselves the party of love would hold up to these standards and tolerate people that they don't personally like in a professional manner. But no, of course not. They absolutely despise people when they say something they don't agree with, and they're surprisingly worse. And these cancel culture people just start screeching like freaking banshees because they don't like that someone they don't like is involved with it that disagrees with them. It's a plain hypocrisy. I am so sick of it. Like, you would expect someone who says you should be fine with whatever the Hollywood system says, you should just tolerate it. They should hold that standard up, but they don't. And it frustrates me. Of course, Carlos has not been helping with this drama either. This drama's still going on, which I get it to an extent of responding to people and defending yourself, but there is a point where you basically just say, you know what, these people aren't going to listen no matter what. So it's not even worth fighting them over. I have a similar issue, unfortunately. But eventually you gotta realize it, and he just keeps going on about it and making the drama much longer. Now there's a bunch of behind the scenes stuff that I keep hearing about. Like, Carlos wouldn't take suggestions for certain scenes. Like, one of them was brought up that one guy wanted to use, like, the helicopter propellers on Bruticus like a shield, like he did in Fall of Cybertron, which Carlos immediately debunked this and showed the clip that the scene where the anime... Another narrative was that Carlos had scammed the Transformers fandom with this GoFundMe project, which, if you don't remember, he made it to get the funds to afford better equipment to render the movie and all the other stuff he needed. People have been saying that he scammed them, and it seems like he hasn't, but granted, I could be wrong. Just a lot of things don't add up, that these narratives by these YouTubers, and also the fact that most of his animators, actually all of them, have stabbed him in the back. Now, there are a few, from what I heard, that didn't actually do it to get cool with the Transformers fan community, or at least the establishment YouTubers. There are some who just gave their thoughts out, like Subpar, for example. I've talked to the guy before. He seems pretty chill. Eventually, someone who worked on the film, Black Crown Productions, made a response video debunking some points and then also pointing out some things that happened behind the scenes. I can understand at first being a part of something and then realizing it's not good. Like, there are plenty of filmmakers that were involved with bad projects, and that the people own up to it, that they were involved. And every single member of his animation team has thrown him under the bus. Like, it's not even funny. Now, I have heard some counterpoints that Carlos is not great with taking criticism. One example of Carlos not taking criticism well, from what I've heard, was one of his comments that was supposedly criticizing how bad the movie was turned out to be a child, and said that his content was way better than the commenters' content, which did not paint a really good image on Carlos. So he has been very well known for not taking criticism very well, but let's continue on. But unfortunately, with both sides of the aisle, the Carlos side and the establishment Transformers YouTubers, they both have narratives that kind of conflict with each other. They bring good points to both their sides, but then they also bring bad points to paint a narrative. Like, no matter what side it is between these two, it's just going to have points that are true and then points that are not true. Like, I'm not really picking a side for this because I don't know which one to pick. Carlos, the guy who made the film, the guy I've heard does not take criticism very well. Or the Transformers YouTubers who don't like people that disagree or fight against their narrative. I've experienced these people before. They are terrible people. So I'm on neither side, to be honest. Carlos seems like a nice guy. He could be acting. It's a possibility. Like the Transformers YouTubers, they act like they're good people, but they're really not. Who say they're open to things, but as soon as you have something that they disagree with, you're instantly a threat. And I want to bring up one point. Hopefully this video comes out before this story comes out. I heard that there are possibly some reports of Carlos doing terrible things to children. And I don't know if this is true or if it's fake, but I think I'm leaning towards it's fake unless if there's real, proper evidence. It might be fabricated. Because here's the weird thing. So I watched Diamond Bolt's video on fan films, and Diamond Bolt mentions that he's happy that Carlos is moving on with this next film, and says that as long as you don't have Orbital Bacon involved with the project and learning from his mistakes, interested watching the film. At the same time, this new narrative came out, and I'm sorry, I think it's a way of sabotage to Prime Animations. Like, they don't like that this guy made this film and then also had people that they didn't like involved with the film. It's just so obvious. Stuff like this happens all the time now. You simply have a disagreement or you guys don't align the same. Let's frame them for something that they didn't actually do. They tried getting rid of them. They tried destroying them. An example recently was how some Star Wars YouTubers were trying to censor people like Geeks and Gamers because they didn't like that their show was canceled, which was The Acolyte, by the way, because these YouTubers were in the way, which in reality, that's just how most people felt about that show anyway, and that's why the show ended up being canceled, and that's why we're not getting a season 2. Like, it could be anything. Or let's bring up the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard situation. Like, Amber Heard accused Johnny Depp of abuse, but then in reality, it was actually Amber Heard abusing Johnny Depp. So right now, unless if there's proper evidence, I am saying that this is a sham, and it's a way to discredit Prime Animations as a Transformers YouTuber, because he could learn from his mistakes of the movie. He could take some feedback and use it to improve for his next movie to make it better. Not every project is going to be great when it comes to filming. And sometimes learning from those bad experiences shows you what you need to do to make better projects. Especially if it's like your first film, which in Prime Animation's case, it was his first film. And now they're trying to destroy him as much as they can. And again, Carlos isn't helping with this situation. He keeps going on about it. Also, I'm going to bring this up as a point. So let's say if Carlos was actually doing this to children, you would think that someone would fess up earlier, because as humans, when dealt with stressful situations, especially like this one, for example, unless if A, they're a criminal, or B, they're a politician, eventually, if they know something like that, especially what they're accusing Carlos of, they would break eventually. They would not wait 10 years to reveal these allegations. It is just a tactic to ruin Carlos's career going forward. And it's such a disgusting tactic for anyone to try. And unless if there's proper evidence to this claim, I will just say that is a terrible thing to accuse somebody, especially knowing that he has a family. That is just wrong. But enough about this point. Let's get back to the video at hand. I think Prime Animations is right to an extent, or should I say Carlos, with no matter what you say or what evidence you're going to bring up, there are people who will simply not listen. Like, that I agree with him on. But at the same time, he keeps going on and on. He keeps saying it, but he keeps doing it. At a point, you gotta stop. Because it's going to make your situation even worse. And I think his fans are right to an extent as well, of saying just ignore the haters and focus on the fans. I do agree with that. Because haters are always going to hate. That's the thing. No matter what you do or how much you want to get the haters to like your stuff, the sad truth is they never will. So it's best to move on from this whole drama and just focus on your next project. Maybe you could do something that is better than Galvatron's Revenge. You could. You just gotta move forward from it. And also ignore all the people who clearly want to tear you down. Because the best way to deal with your haters is not to acknowledge them. I have had plenty of haters on my channel before, and I don't really talk to them. There were a few occasions I did, because I felt like I should explain the situation, but at a certain point I'm like, it's not worth it anymore. And with the criticisms that he claimed to write down, with those criticisms, you could make something even better and hopefully get more people on your side. And I will say, I gotta criticize Carlos for this. Him disabling the comments was such a weak move. I have received plenty of hate comments before, and I have never once disabled the comments because I want people to express how they feel about things. Even if it's like hate messages, you just simply ignore them. But anyway, that's how I feel about this whole drama with Galvatron's revenge. I felt like there needed to be somebody who wasn't a biased source. Because all the people who've been criticizing the movie and making these narratives are people that are the big time Transformers YouTubers. There's been really no one on the opposite side talking about these dramas or anything like that. So I figured I'd give it an even split. Like, I can understand points that Carlos is saying, but I also understand some points that the Transformers YouTubers community says, because I think both are at fault for this whole drama. No one's the innocent one, no one's the guilty one. They're both the culprits of this situation, unless if we find out more details that involve the project. But anyway, I'm done talking about this. And as a heads up, I am not making another video about this controversy again. Like, I am just not going to. This controversy was so unbelievably painful to get as much information as possible with this. Going through Carlos's stuff and then also going through other people's stuff. It was frustrating. Luckily, I had somebody behind the scenes to give me details about what exactly happened and also gave me some timeline stamps of each event that happened with this whole controversy. And yeah, that's about it. I don't care what people think about the film. If they like it, cool. If they don't, cool. But I think we can all agree that this controversy has been going on for too long and it needs to stop. But anyway, this is D the B signing off.